Hello. Hello there. So we are live. So as I said last time, we are going to be starting the modeling of the Citadel. So hopefully by today we'll be able to get something that looks like this. Obviously the texturing and all of that, I'll be doing that on a different day, possibly tomorrow or maybe day after tomorrow. So it has a very kit bash look to it, but yeah, it's got those Chebychev textures on top of it, classic Star Wars style. So yeah, hopefully by the end we'll have something that closely resembles this again. Just for the people who weren't there in the last, I mean, people as in whoever saw the last live stream. If one of those few 2-3 people didn't watch it last time, I am going to be using this model for my short film that I'm developing right now, and I it's not one of those close-up shots, so it does not have to be that detailed, but I do need it to have a decent amount of texturing and a decent amount of um a level of detail towards it. So we'll try to recreate that. And yeah, so let's jump into Blender. And for this one I'm using 2.92, and there's no specific reason as such. I'm using 2.92. It's the latest one, it's the latest stable version, and that's why I'm using it. Usually for long-term projects I tend to use 2.83 LTS, but for some reason I'm not using it. I just don't know why. I just like this. I do not like this splash screen, however. I have loved all the other splash screens of Blender, but the latest one not so much. Okay, so basic cube setup. Let's delete the whole thing and let's begin. So coming back to the reference, if you look at it, it's technically got a quadrilateral base to it, even though it looks a bit pyramidish. So I think we can start off at that. Okay, actually I want to try something, and I'll just do that once. um let's just go for the cube first. And let's apply the transforms. Let's scale. Okay, tap into edit mode. I'm just trying a few different tricks for the base. I do have one in my head, but I'll see. Okay, let's scale that in. Okay, so what I'm basically doing here is using a bunch of primitives to sketch out the actual um, shape of the object. So for this one, let's just eyeball it. And the good thing about working with assets that you might use in a movie, say, is that you don't actually have to be all that technically accurate, as long as you have, I mean, when you're working on a production level design, it's extremely important that you have the design as accurate as possible, mainly due to scaling issues and all of that. But when it's something that's going to be plugged into Unreal Engine for a short film, I think this is enough. Alright, symmetrical, I was just, it's my head. hmm Okay, alright, okay, alright. So now let's see if this actually works. I'm sorry. Base needs to be just a bit wider. Yeah, I guess that's alright for the base itself. So the issue with looking at references like these is that you don't usually get all the views. Like for the Scarif Tower, it's usually just this one angled view that we have, but that's okay. What's actually bothering me is something else, actually. Okay, okay, cool. Okay, now what we are going to do is so basically, when you're working with a 3D object, and well, any 3D object, and if your aim is to get it to look photorealistic, they should have beveled edges, because nothing in the real world is as sharp as these theoretical edges go. So when you look at these theoretical edges, you might think that's what the real thing looks like, but subconsciously your brain knows that that's not what it looks like. That's why certain objects, even though they have photorealistic textures on them, they tend not to look like actual objects. So for that, we are going to give a bevel to the edges. Now, the straightforward way of doing this would be to just click each edge and add a bevel to it, although that is a very tedious process, and it's it's not feasible when you have so many edges. I mean, for like for this specific model, it's quite easy to find the edges, but when you're working with a huge model, there are a huge number of edges. So for that, we are going to be using the hard ops C sharpen mode. So for that, just Q. We've got a bevel here, but that's not the bevel we need. What we need is a C sharpen, and what C sharpen basically does is that it adds a tiny amount of bevel to your entire object. So it's barely visible. It's there, but it's barely visible. But that changes a lot. So what C sharpen? So if you can't see it on this one, I'll just slide over, add a cube over here, and this is a very sharp cube. So if you go in here, we add C sharpen. So C sharpen just gives these beveled edges to it. And what's great about C sharpen is that unlike the normal bevel, if you tap into edit mode, say perhaps you wanted to add a loop cut and you wanted to extrude, in the normal bevel mode, that extra extrusion would have just been a sharp node, but in this case it has beveled that as well, because the whole thing is being controlled by the C sharp modifier, which in this case over here is a bevel modifier. So yeah, it works that way. And oops, okay, now for this, even though we have the bevel modifier add on, certain aspects of it looks sharp because there are no edges for it to bevel in the front end of this, but towards the back, if you look at it, there are actually beveled edges, and if you want to increase the bevel, you can do that. You just add a little bit more and the bevel is visible. I think 0.1 is a good amount of bevel for this. Okay, now okay, and for the other detailed uh, looks on top of it, we'll get to that later on its own, but yeah, for now this is it. Okay, okay, that looks good. Now you might have noticed that there are certain things missing, as in the front plate for the actual building. So for that, I'm going to choose this line and subdivide, and let's subdivide it multiple times. Let's go to 1. I choose this, and hit F. Same goes here. I usually don't follow this method, but um, in this case it's fine. And that's it. So as you can see, the C sharp beveling is working very well with the actual pocket, so it's a very simple pocket like thing. So now what would actually help this would be if we added a solidify modifier, and put it on top, and there we go. Actually, okay, there's some issue with solidify. Okay, we'll look at that later. Okay, Okay, so Solidify will work in this. The only way we can make it work is actually converting the bevel into mesh by applying it. But before I actually apply it in, I would actually uh, like to finalize the design once more. And okay, all right. So two ways we can go about creating the rest of the tower. Is The first way would be to just click the plane, select it, and use that as the actual upbringing shaft. But instead of that, let's just go with a brand new object. So this is done. Again, let's just save the file first, and before we do that, let's save it first. And I have already made a place for it. Okay, so for the naming aspect of the file, I would mostly go with an iterative version. So Citadel v1, and there we go. Now, yeah, let's rename the cube into base pocket. Let's just name it base. Okay, now let's hmm, okay, and now to get that, we get another cube. We scale it. Actually, let's descale it by 0.9 to do it. We're gonna apply the scale and let's bring it up. Actually, let's bring it really up. Okay, now for the actual base itself, the tower. Let's look at it once again. Mhm. Okay, so basically, we'll take this in a two-way step. Let's just go into the wireframe mode first. You can either do this in the wireframe mode or in the X-ray mode, whichever is fine, but I prefer doing it in the wireframe mode. Uh, Select our cube and let's go into the edit mode and edge select. We've got both the edges selected over here. So if you look at it in the wireframe mode, both the edges are selected and both the edges have to be selected for what I'm about to do. We're going to shift. So we've selected all four edges towards the parallel z-axis and we are going to subdivide. And that's it. Now we go into the point mode and we choose these two and scale it in the y-axis, and we're just going to and for these 2 points we'll scale it a bit inward again. The idea is to make sure there's enough space between the base pocket thingy and the tower itself. So coming back to this, okay, let's scale it down, and bam, that should do. And let's select the whole thing, bring it forward a little bit. That should do it. Okay, so now we have this cube which we will take with us down there. Again, if there is an issue with the like texturing, unwrapping and all of that, we can always come back, add some loop cuts and make sure that the unwrapping is done properly. For now, let's just bring it down there. That's it. And if we tap out, we go back into solid view. It's somewhat looking like the actual tower itself, but yeah, the base is just a little bit more wider on the actual thing. So let's bring it in. We'll scale it a bit more. That looks much better. Yep, that looks much better. Okay, I think the actual citadel could be a bit more bigger on the top. Let's go. That should do it. And again, it's easy to lose the sense of scale when you're modeling with no reference nearby. Like, technically the citadel is so big that uh, a normal human rig, if I had to place one, would be somewhere around here. But yeah, oh, wait, actually somewhere around here. Yeah, but so now the main reason why we actually subdivided, now this entire object itself could have been done with the 4 points that we had, but the reason we subdivided it is because of the top part, which is right here, this region. So it straightens out over here and it slants in. So that's what we're going to do. Back into edit mode. Let's loop select this edge actually. So what we're going to do is alt and click, loop select, and we could use this, or we could just move it back, but that just ruins the geometry. All right, okay, we'll actually just add a loop cut right over here. We might have needed a bit more, and 0. That's about it. We can just take this and dissolve the edges. We don't need it. Okay. Okay, now let's tap into the point mode and let's bring it down. Let's go with minus 3.5. And again, this is one of the reasons I left uh, the whole setup in Blender, is because sometimes the scales don't work the way they are supposed to work in an actual pipeline, which is something that is given a good amount of importance in softwares like Maya or Cinema 4D. Okay, I think that's good enough for now. We could go down a little bit more, which would mean somewhere around there. That looks okay. So total of minus 6.5 meters downwards. Okay, now let's actually start by okay, one thing I forgot to add into this was the C sharpen level. Let's add that. EQ operations C sharpen, and again to make it look a bit more better, let's go with 0.1. Okay, that's a bit too much. 0.02. Actually, let's just go with what it was, default. Let's just default it. Is there a difference after you put it? Definitely. So let's zoom in here. You'll be able to see the difference. I switch it off, it's sharp. I switch it back on, it's beveled. Again, try to use C sharp as much as C sharp or any normal beveling tool to make sure your edges are not as sharp as they seem to be. And for the actual base itself, I know this is not what the actual base looks like. We will work on that in a while. Let's keep saving. Okay, now I think this is the way I'm going to go. Basically, for these inner layers, instead of creating new objects, I think it would be better to go with insetting this and moving ahead. And the reason why I'm saying is that because we have already added the C sharp edge to this object, I think it'll handle it pretty well if it is inset and used that way. So tap back into edit mode, space select, and let's subdivide. And that's a very bad subdivide. Okay, we'll probably use loop cut. Let's use loop dot. Okay. Hmm. Okay, look at. Okay, perfect. Let's look at it and add one more, add one more, one more. I could have just used the shortcut for that, and yep. Okay, let's face select and select the loops here. Select these. Make sure nothing else is selected when you're doing this. Go into wireframe, check all throughout. And I did say we'll be using the Bygen add-on. I am not sure, we probably might use it for some sort of last minute finishing touches, but yeah, I haven't actually used Bygen add-on that much. um, I know it's a very powerful add-on, but I still haven't gotten around to using it properly. On the other hand, hard ops and box cutter is something I like to use, and don't have much experience with box cutter, but hard ops is definitely good because hard ops has this very efficient feature in it called hard ops helper. So basically you press control title and you get this hard ops helper window, which basically acts as your modifier tab, material tab, all of that rolled into one within the viewport, and it shows you individual things. As you can see right now, I'm using a non-destructive workflow, so if there's any issue I can always revert back. If that is also not possible, I'm using an iterative saving system, so that'll allow me to go back to an earlier point if I wish to do so. Doesn't usually happen, but uh, when it does happen, it's always good to have a little bit of backup. Other than that, um, yeah, let's start by actually extruding this, and let's go with around 1 meter for now. If we need to change it, we'll see. Not sure. As you can see, C sharp is just working perfectly well, and the insets are smooth as well, which is exactly what we wanted. Again, let's look at the measurements. I mean, okay, 1 meter, maybe 2 meters, bit too much. I agree. Towards the base of it is where most of the detail goes garbage, and I understand these. Some of these are concept arts. Some of them are the extra wide shots from Rogue One. Like this one is one of the extra. Not this one, sorry. This one is an extra wide shot. So is this one from Rogue One itself. This is a concept art, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, and this is not even the Citadel. The Citadel is actually this one right here. But yeah, again, I don't think we'll be needing the level of detail this artist has used in his um, render, but I think we'll just add a couple of details if required later on. Okay, there are sluice gates over here, which I'll definitely add once the main parts are done, like the main components are finished placing. Okay, I don't think two is required. Let's just go with one. And for these four, we'll just GZ. I think that works well. Yes. Okay. Okay. It's coming together. Not that pretty. Again, the Citadel wasn't the prettiest of the architectures. It was just mainly to show the strength of the Imperial system and its securities. Again, all of that failed thanks to Jin also. Again, the reason why I chose this setting for the short film is because I really liked Rogue One. It is probably the best uh, prequel that's been made, prequel or anthology of Star Wars. The cinematography, the storytelling, and everything, it was really nice. Uh, wasn't expecting all the characters to die at the end, but it was a good movie. So again, C sharp is working perfectly fine on the edges. As you can see, it's beveled. If we just disable it for a moment, you can see the edges are rough, and the moment you add it back on, it's back to being beveled. Okay, what else to add? Okay, there's one more extrusion on top of it, so let's add that. And for the edges where there are certain parts that need to be modified, we'll be using the box cutter. So for that, we'll wait up, but other than that, this should work. Let's tab out, take this again. Hmm. Okay, let's use a loop cut. Uh-huh. Little bit over there. -0.5. And that's till the edge. So okay, let's actually use a loop cut over here. Here and here. Okay, because there is a slight edge deflect. Okay, let's go with this. Face select. That's the new one. Let's extrude it along the global Z. Again, this. Let's go with a 4.5. Okay, looks good. Now let's actually start. Let's start. Yeah. So this is where hmm, hmm. Okay, Then edge select. Let's go with these. Let's bring it up. And the reason for that is let's go with the 6. Let's add a loop cut to this. And it's somewhere around here. Let's go with a 0.5. And choose these. Along with this, let's bring it up. The reason for that is okay, that's not how it's done. One sec. Let's just bring this up. Not that much. Let's go here. 1. Let's make it as even as possible. Doesn't really matter. I mean, let's bring it to 0.8. Okay. 0.9. 0.9. Let's go with 0.9. 0.85. Okay, that looks as even as it can get. Okay. Now it does look a bit hideous because I used a lot of loop cuts. Ideally, you shouldn't use a lot of loop cuts because that ends up increasing the number of polygons used. But for something like this, not a lot of polygons, and hopefully it wouldn't affect much during texturing. If it gets hard during unwrapping or something, I'll just probably think of using Substance Painter and just paint on top of its layers. Not the best way to do it, but I have a stylus lying around and I wouldn't mind actually painting through it. But ideally, unwrap this again. If possible, I'll have to do a retop on top of this, which is basically uh, removing the faces on top of it and adding new ones. Again, not the ideal way to do it. Now, uh, setting aside the modeling aspect of it for a moment, I had been thinking of using Unreal Engine. I still do. It's just that uh, the SSGI plugin for Eevee is really nice, and I actually don't want to use Eevee on this, but I really want to try the plugin. I might do a couple of rendering tests on that and see. I had already done a couple of tests on other rendering engines like LuxCore, ProRenderer, Cycles, Octane, Redshift, to name a few. So probably going to show the results of that in a later stream. For now, let's complete the modeling for this one. And yeah, over here actually, I would like to add a casket of sorts for the antenna. So again, look at find one more, and let's add that in there, and face select some, actually extrude it out. E Z X. Okay, that's the face. Let's scale it inwards. Okay, let's just scale it this way. Okay, that's okay. That looks okay. And for this and this B, let's bring it in there. Actually, $50 is 50. Let's go with 20 or 10. Before we actually do that, let's do this one. 1.5, 1.6. Let's go with 1.6. 1.7, 1.8. Let's go with 1.6. Actually, 1.8. 1.8 works. And okay, that works. Now to add the actual cylinder. For that, let's take these. I thought we might have a couple of things to change regarding the like use the box cutter, but model is coming pretty okay compared to what I expected. So go with minus 0.5. Okay, that looks good. Do I need it? Yes, it's a steep incline. Alright, so now for the actual antenna itself, no, it actually looks a bit more higher than the rest of it, so we're just going to get it to 0.5. That looks good. Okay, and let's add in a bit of scale as well, just cause. About 1, 0.5. 0.5 looks good. Alright, let's. That actually doesn't look half bad. I was expecting something worse. Again, for primitive shape, that's okay. Let's save this version 1. So the reason why I'm not changing the iteration of the file as of right now is because we have not done any sort of destructive changes to the actual model by applying any of the modifiers to it. So like if I want, I can remove the bevel modifier right now. It won't really matter a lot. We can just add it back in. So yeah. Alright, let's start by actually getting the antenna. Antenna, super simple, mesh, cylinder. Get it over here. Before we actually do that, let's rename this into tower and hit save. And again, this is why I like using Blender at times, just because the stability is really nice. By this point, Cinema 4D would have crashed at least 10 to 12 times, and I would have to restart the whole thing like a couple of times. So uh, Blender does all of that really well. There are some things that Blender is just really good at. Okay, I already think this is going to be a problem for us later on in texturing, but okay, we'll deal with it. Again, if I remove this, the whole issue with the beveling just goes away, but I don't know, it just looks weird without a little bit of a bevel on it. So yeah, I'm going to let it be in there. If I was using Octane, I would have used a different approach to this. Instead of adding bevel at all, I would have used the round edges node for Octane, which is very nice to fake the actual uh, geometry of the object. So it's very nice for that. Unfortunately, I'm not using Octane for this one, so let the bevel stay. And yeah, back to the antenna. So Shift A, add in the cylinder. 32 should be enough. Let's just see once. No, we need at least 64. So cylinder 64 vertices, and let's bring that up there. Okay, looks much better. Now let's scale it down. 0.1. Okay, wait. 0.5. Scale the z-axis by 5. That looks okay. Let's get this position, and it is in position, so we can do with that. Okay, the actual antenna itself, face, bring that up. Let's bring it to 2 actually, and we'll insert this, and insert this by 0.25, and extrude this by 1 meter. That should do it. Oh, it's the opposite. Alright. Supposed to outset it, I guess. That won't work, so all I'm going to do is take this and step out of edit mode, add one more cylinder, and just a sec, I will be back. uh, and we're back. Alright, we're back. Sorry about that. Let's go back here. And we have our second cylinder. Let's just take it back up. Okay. This one actually a bit bigger than the last one. S.5. It's back to what it was. S.75. That should do it. Bring it back to what it was. So for that, let's just go into wireframe mode and exactly where it was, back in there, and bring it up. Just get that top. Again, you don't have to be exactly accurate to bring it back to the top. I'm just tinkering around with it. Okay, and that is the upper base for the antenna. I think it could be a bit more bigger, so let's just a little bit bigger, not too much, just a little bit. Again, if it seems at any point that it's overshadowing the rest of the uh, Citadel, keep in mind we can always scale them along the z-axis at any point we need. So for now, let's dial this down, save it, and yeah. And for these, if you need, I haven't actually used C# on any of the cylinders, and they actually do work well. So let's bevel these, and okay, let's pull them together and join them. So now this is your cylinder stick. Name this as antenna base. That should do it. Let's pull it up a little bit more. Okay, actually let's pull it down a bit. Okay, antenna base, the tower itself, is scale it up a little bit. Doesn't look that great. Alright, we'll look into that. Should repeat itself. that out of the way. Okay, let's bring it down. Let's bring it down there. Let's bring down the rest of this to more appropriate location. Should probably be something like bring all of that down to more appropriate. Does not work that way, so let's just edge select this whole thing, bring it down again, edge select, bring that down, and edge select, bring this whole thing down. This with it as well. Okay, that looks okay. Tap out of edit mode. Okay, we have our first overlap issue here. Let's just undo this. Head with. This is why it's always nice to have a little bit of control. Okay, let's save on that. Okay, now uh, to fix the overlapping issue, there is an actual method, and that's by actually uh, separating this top part from the rest of the tower. But instead of, let's see how it actually looks after a while. For now, it's okay. Should have actually seen the overpowering, but it's okay. I think the antenna will do off that. Now let's actually use a circle. Why are we using a circle? Actually, let's not use a circle. Let's use a cylinder. And let's bring it up. Just a sec. Now let's bring it in. Okay, so this upper part is going to act as the actual antenna itself. I'll get to the modeling part in a second. Just a second. Okay. now we can just scale down this cylinder to a level we find pleasing. And 0.05 is way too low, so let's just go with 0.01. Actually, let's go with 0.08. Big enough, but it's not too big. The reason for that is, if you look at the references, I mean not the reference itself, uh, if you look at like an actual antenna, it's a bit thick towards the lower half, and it gets thinner as you go towards the edge of it. So hopefully I'll be able to achieve something of that sort by playing with the top and bottom edges. But for now, this is it. Let's actually start by lowering it in. Okay, edit mode, and select the edges, and let's extrude it. And that's our issue. Not extrude it. Actually, we might have to use something else for this. I completely forgot that extrusion does not work for these things, but yeah. I mean, if you do extrude it this way, it does not work. So what you need to do is bring up the box cutter add-on. Let's bring that in. Okay, we will actually have to look this up because I forgot how we extrude circles, which is pretty silly when you reach this level of using Blender. Okay, I don't know how this is supposed to work. It's much easier on Cinema 4D, but again, can't go back in. Wait. Shift, and this is definitely not how it works. Nope. This is half of what it's like to be a modeler or working in animation. Half of the thing is just finding out how to do it. That is definitely not how it works. Let's actually start by using the edges. Let's see if that works. Yes, I mean, that's not what I had in mind, but that actually works. So let's just use this, which is not what I had in mind, but does work. Let's go with 1.3, 1.3, 1.3, and now, actually, give me a second. Now let's okay. Now let's extrude it just a little bit. By that I mean 0.1, and scale it at 1.3, 1.3, 1.3. Now, is this how an antenna looks? Nope. So we bring it back and edge it in a way that we can see fit. So scale it till the point it seems good. 1.1, 1.1, 1.1. Doesn't look that good, so we go with 1.15, 1.15, 1.15. Looks okay. Now, same thing again, extrude a little bit more, go with 0.1, and scale again 1.15, 1.15, 1.15. What this does, starts giving you a weird sort of shape, but this is fine. What we need right now is something else. So do this once more and I think we'll have the antenna ready. I think we have to do it like 2 times more. So extrude once again 0.1 and scale it 1.15, 1.15. That's it. Extrude once again. Scale it in. Scale it outwards. And that's it. the reason why we have extruded this in such a way is because we needed these cuts, and another way of doing it was like scale it in and uh, add the loop cuts in it. But this way, actually both are pretty good. Now why we did this is because we get to add a small amount of curvature to the entire thing. Do this for this as well. We are adding this curvature because dishes are bowls and they don't look like plates. So yeah. One point 6. Again, if this looks jagged right now, that is fine. Once we remove the faces and we shade smooth it, it should look much better. Okay, now I think we have like the base shape of the antenna ready. Let's remove the frontal face of it. So delete that. I'm sorry. And yeah, there we have it. Now let's see if this looks good with a shade smooth on it. And it does look good. It looks like a saucer, and that's exactly what we wanted. Another way to do this was using a spline. What we could have actually done was take a spline and rotate it, and let's actually try that method as well. We'll keep this aside, we'll just hide it for now, and let's actually take a curve, a Bezier curve, bring it up all the way up here, and see it's a bit small, so let's scale it up. It's scaled up, and okay, so when you get the Bezier curve, it's in this format. It's a bit uh, not straight, it's curvy. So what you do for that is go up and you have your curve, press Alt L, and if that doesn't work, oh wait, you're supposed to be in edit mode, and press A and Alt L. Yeah, it's V. Set the handle type to vector, and once you do that, it's straight. Sorry, it's not Alt L, it's a V actually. And yeah, now what you do, take it, let's rotate it by 90 degrees. Now we take this and we just make it the way it's supposed to be, which is this way. .5. Let's try the same thing on this node with a, let's actually go with phi. This with a, okay, that looks okay. Now to make this of a better resolution, again this is going to be the uh, curvature along which we are going to use the spin tool or spin modifier. I'm not sure which one it was, I forgot it. So it's a bit, it has steps in it right now, right? So to change that, we just go into the resolution preview, go into the actual geometry, and not the geometry actually itself, resolution preview, let's make it to 24. Now it's much smoother and it looks much better. So yeah, is this how curved it is in the reference? Absolutely not. It's kind of the exact one that we used for the first one which we made. So we compare both of them. Again, these seem to have steps in it. The actual antenna, not this one, the actual antenna from the Citadel itself seems to have steps in it. And that's how it is. We'll probably use that, but just to showcase that we can do it in this way as well. Now, choose this, go into edit mode, actually convert this into a mesh. Before we do that, let's actually extrude it just a little bit so that we get to see how it looks. Let's actually extrude it a little bit. Let's go to 0.1 and there we go. This is the edge that we will be using. If you want, you can give it a depth, although giving it a depth, you can just fill the gaps, and giving the depths not usually a good idea, especially when you're working with something like this. So let's not fill the gaps. Let's try that mode. So first we gotta change this into a mesh. Once it's a mesh, you can't change any of the curves anymore, and you go into the edit mode and we use the spin tool. Choose all of it and let's spin it. So right now it's spinning around the actual curvature because that is the origin we have set. Change the origin and work on it again, but like I said, yeah, there we go. This is how it works. Again, there's a completely different aspect of working with this anyways, so doesn't really matter too much of work. So let's just go with the one we made for this one, which is this teeny tiny saucepan, and we shade it flat. So like, let's bring it back to what it actually was, and let's just use this. So we are going to scale it a little bit more, and we are going to use this. Actually, let's bring it around and insert this once, and yes, let's use this. This looks good. This looks good. So let's use this, and there we go. And that's the actual antenna. Now for the innards of the antenna itself, we will probably use Bezier curves, or we could just use, actually we'll just use Bezier curves for that moment. And yeah, but before we actually do that, uh, okay, it's a very small antenna that they have used in it. We no need to use like the actual antenna for it. We don't need to use a Bezier curve, we'll just use a normal cylinder. Again, in Blender there are 8,000 different versions of curves and all of that. I have never used any of them. Let's just go with a normal cylinder for now. Keeping it simple is always the obvious choice. Now, wireframe this. And that's about it. We'll obviously scale it down to 0.5, maybe even more. Actually, yeah. And let's just scale it on the z-axis. Scale it down a little bit more, a little bit more. Scale it again. Okay. Now, let's bring it down and wham, it goes. Okay, that's now to make it look like an actual antenna, nothing much to do. Tap into edit mode, click on the scale and bring it to a level that is believable. So let's go with something like 0.05. 5.5 looks very pointy, very pointy. So we'll go back and we'll probably use actually this cylinder. Let's actually delete the cylinder. Why? Because the segments are a bit too much, so we'll just get another cylinder. Or we could just use in a cone, but I need a little bit of a tip that is not sharp. So cylinder that has very little vertices. So let's bring it to around 5. You know, 5 actually looks good. Let's go with 5. Let's bring it on top. That is okay. Bit to the left. It's okay. And it's okay. Again, scale, scale. Okay. Let's bring it up. Looks alright. Not that great. I mean, as far as antennas go, it's doable. Now we choose edit mode, pick that, and scale it down. That looks okay. That looks okay. If we want, we can add like another C sharpen to it with a lot of bevel. Again, doesn't really matter. 0.03. We'll just go with the normal ones we've been using till now. could add a bit of step to it. I think a half bevel would be a better idea. I think this looks good. Let's go with this. And yeah, that's okay. So most of the primitive modeling is done. Hi there, and yeah, most of the primitive modeling is done. All we need to do right now is start with the actual details on it. So looking back on the reference, the edges are something we'll have to work on. Again, I did not think it would take me this long to get the primitives going, so my modeling skills are not that great as of right now. Okay, probably going to be using a mirror modifier for this edge area, and yeah, we're done with most of the top modeling. Now it's all about the detailing and insetting and all of that, which we will get to after a while. Now let's just go back and make sure the base is a bit more bigger than what we actually intended. So let's actually make it a bit bigger. Okay, that looks better. Okay, now let's add those dangling thingies, whatever they are. Okay, they come towards the back here. Stamp that in, and let's add loop cuts, the best cuts. Loop cuts, loop cuts, loop, loop. Okay, now let's just use the mirror modifier and extrude this out. And that was supposed to work, it did not. So I'm guessing I'll have to do this by hand. E X X Y Y Z. That's the way to go, and that does not work. So E X X. Again, Y is normal. Okay, never mind. Let's just start here. Minus. Actually, we might have to do a bit more of loop cuts on these. Because again, if there are parts that are protruding out, the sense of scale for the entire building will be lost. So we don't want that to happen. We'll just use these and hopefully they work. So yeah, not too much. We'll get it to minus 10, and now we'll just use G to get things off to a better place. G shift Z, which is right around there. going to be actually I actually forgot to note those down. So since the mirror modifier is not working over here, as in not the modifier, actually I was using the symmetry enabling, which does not work over here. So what we're going to do is just we're going to do it by hand. Minus 10, same thing here, minus 10. Now for the actual shift, we're going to do G, shift Z, so that'll allow me to put it here, which would be minus 1.5 and 15. Minus 1.5 and 15, same thing here. G, Z, 5, 50, and minus 1.15. Okay, that looks okay. It's a bit shared out of perspective, but other than that, it looks good. Again, okay, we might have to untick the bevel in this one, mainly because there are certain parts of this that I'm not happy with the way it's turning out. Okay, now let's actually just use this. I'm gonna tab it in again. Unsubdivide. Okay, I didn't know that was an option we had, but yeah. If we go back in here, remove the markings from the edges, and yeah, that should do it. And now we're back to normal. No more sharps. Let's just let's just get back into this. And we'll scale them both in this way. So scale it in at resize at 0.5. It's a bit too much, so we'll go back to 0.4. Same here. S 4. Okay, that looks good. Now let's start on point. Okay, let's add the loop cuts, which will be right over here towards the edge, around minus 0.75. Actually, minus 0.8. Let's go with minus 0.8. Same here. R minus 0.8. And now select both parties extrude upwards by 2.5, and let's actually reduce the scaling to 0.05 on either side. That looks a bit weird, so let's bring it to 0.1. 0.1 looks good. Again, scale it to 0.1. And if you're not happy with the way it looks, just select it, like select the face, just sharpen it upwards to 2.2, and same thing here, 2, done. So basic structure with primitives is almost done. Now all that is left is, let's just save this up, and what we have to do is add in these sluice gates, and these sluice gates are actually right here. Once those are added in as well, we can actually start by just scaling it up just by that much. Actually, let's scale all of those up. Okay, antenna, dish, and antenna, receiver. Now these three can form collection antenna. Okay, now taking the tower and the rest of the antenna, scale it up. And it might look out of proportion. Let's bring it up and let's just see how it looks. Again, a bit of the issue comes from the antenna being too scaled up, so we can just choose that, reduce that, or just reduce the way it's been scaled. Make sure that that part is in there. The rest of it, we can always just bring it back up, just the same way we brought it back again. So choose these, choose these, choose these, and that's it. Now bring it up. In you go. There it is. Looks good. Now that was those parts. Now the sluice gates itself comes and forms something enormous around the actual thing, so we can do alt, we can edge select this, we can just scale it up. Instead of scaling it up, let's just bring it up. And this also includes a little bit again, brings up certain parts of it, parts that I don't want, so we just choose these areas and move these two and scale it up actually. And let's delete this part. Again, problems from both sides occurring at the same time. Okay, that looks good. That's workable. Now we will just I think that looks good enough. So for the sluice gates, actually what I had in mind was a basic cube. I mean, it starts off as a basic cube, so we add two of those, and let's just scale it up and bring it up, and I'm going to add the mirror modifier into this. So basically, mirror, there, mirror modifier, axis X, and the object itself is the cube. The object being mirrored on is the base, and I mean, okay, why then? All right, there you go. Cube's ready. Let's rotate that. Okay, no X, just Y. Rotate Z, and that's about it. Actually, check in with this. Let's bring it to -30. Nope. -25. This works the best actually. And let's just go with this. Bring it in. And there we go. That's the actual sluice gate. But what we're gonna add is a loop cut into this. It's gonna be tab loop cut, and there we go. Let's just go with a 0 on this and select that edge and G, C, and Y. There we go, and that's it. That will be the bevel on it. I mean the edge on it, and let's add in an edge inset or a loop cut. Actually, let's just go with a loop cut for this because it'll be easier. One, two, three. Okay. We choose areas to open. Let's edge insert these areas. once we insert, actually let's do these. Actually, edge insert doesn't work, so we'll do the edge insert separately for all of them. So go with 0.1. Similarly, 0.1, 0.1, and now choose them and intrude to -1. That should do it. And there we go. Sluice gates are ready and good to go. We could add more details into it, like adding an A slope and giving a slight bevel to certain parts of it, but from a long distance point of view, not really required. For the edges over here as well, let's actually look at that. That extruded 1.5 and S scale it in 0.1. Doing the same thing again. Yeah, extrude it 0.5, scale it in 0.1. It's good. I mean, again, you don't have to be exactly accurate for this part of it, because this is going to be extremely far from the actual shot, but it's always great to keep a certain level of closeness with what you're modeling. This is not one of those, and I suck at this, but yeah, S, Shift Z, and yeah, that looks okay. Okay, now let's use the actual box cutter, and before we do that, let's save this. And before we do that as well, nope, let's save this. Now we're going to do something destructive, which is take this and add that bevel which we needed. So now operators, C sharpen, and there we go, the bevel is added. Okay, I mean, it looks okay, so let's go with it. Actually, let's remove that. Let's shade it flat once again, and let's leave it like this for now. I think I like it. Okay, now time to add the box cutter, which will act as the entrance as well. I mean, which will give us the entrance. So for that, we are actually going towards the side. choosing the tower itself, and yeah, just go with a simple look, which would be with the box cutter taking in and D. Now using the N-gon tool selection, we are going to start. Go with that and hit enter, and bam, there we go. We've got that look, the sort of look that you get with a tower that is like this. And this is exactly why box cutter is one of the best add-ons. It allows you to cut paths that are really well decided. As you can see, when in the edit mode, you can see the areas that the box cutter has removed, and you actually have the cutter available in the scene selection as it is. But right now we don't need it. This is the box which we use to cut it out. We can move it around if we want, but I'm not going to touch it for now if not required. And yeah, this looks good. Now we can save this as version 2, because now we're going to add a solidify to it. We're going to choose this. We're going to make sure the boolean is applied. And now, actually, before applying the boolean, let's choose the solidify, bring it on top, and let's crank up the value to something like 0.1. That looks good. That looks really good. So we actually, let's bring it up a little bit more. As you can see, the more I try to bring it in, the more it involves the rest of the cutter, which is not what we need. So we'll bring it to 0.5, and that's about it for this one. So yeah, all in all, looks good. Certain issues over here, but generally not that big of a deal. Let's bring that down. Let's actually stick to 0.1, or we could just go the other way. Would increase the complexity, but let's just stick to 0.1, minus 0.1 actually. And we can actually apply this now, but let it be. We'll keep it in. But yeah, if the boolean was on top, this would actually seem to be a better idea. The boolean is on top, the cutter won't influence it, so let's just use that. Again, too much of that can cause an issue, so instead of just using the solidify right now, you know what, let's remove these balancers at the end. Let's choose that. Let's choose all of it and separate the selection. Similarly here, choose these. Choose these regions, separate by selection, and done. we're not. Now we choose this, we add in the solidify, and we can crank that up to 0.5 more. It doesn't really matter, we wouldn't see much of an issue arising. So let's go with a good amount, like 1 meter. 1 meter looks good. That's about it. Actually, let's okay, let's go with 1 meter and let it be in there. And we can actually add, since it's not an issue anymore, let's try adding a C sharpen to the whole thing and increase that. Okay, let's just let it be. We'll keep it at 0.3, and that's it. That's it for this. I think it looks good, feels good. I mean, you know what, let's not add that. I like the sharp look that it gives right now, and it looks good. So Citadel with the sluice gates and the, yeah, we're getting pretty close to what it might actually have looked like. Certain parts of it definitely I would like to change, like the edge over here. Most likely have a subdivide. You just subdivide that and go into the point selections. Take these 2 points. Let's just bring that down a little bit and to separate it off axis. Why not? Why not? And that's it. I think it looks pretty close to what it would have actually looked like. This, certain things I would definitely change, like this area right here. Definitely bring it a bit more down there. But yeah, overall this seems to be good. For now, let's probably leave it at that. Huh. Okay, that seems to be a recurring issue, so let's address it. Let's just add the final cut that we kind of see over here with the Citadel, but yeah, not that big of a deal, but let's add it in anyways, because why not? And okay, now let's subdivide those edges a couple of times. Let's bring it to 5. Probably see the points right around there. That works. Let's take that, take those, and hit F. That creates a line, but that's not what we need. What we need is instead of taking it that way, we could just use the knife tool which I think would be a better option in this scenario. Okay, save this and use the knife tool, another tool that I've never used properly. Again, bring it in here. There, enter, and okay, that should work on the other side as well if I keep the x-axis topology on. And okay, again, enter, and no, that did not work, but it's okay. We will try something else, which is just there. Enter. Those points are not matching as we thought. So, what to do? Again, choosing I think I'm gonna eyeball this. I mean, sure. Yeah, I think that's good enough. Okay, okay, that looks okay. Now let's go into face select and choose the actual faces, which are going to be these ones right here. Let's extrude them out just a little bit, not too much, just a meter or so, not a lot. Same thing here. Again, just a meter, not too much. Now, according to the actual thing, a bit of a line here, so we can choose these two, extrude it out. Again, just a meter, not too much. And there's a bit of clipping there, so to change that, we will choose, before we do that, actually let's do the choose those two, extrude, so we can see the extent of it. Actually, just extrude it normally, and just a meter. Similarly here, extrude, just a meter, and tap out of edit mode and come back in here, choose the editing mode, go back into edge select and choose the edges once again, G and Y, bring it to 1.6. That looks good. Same thing here, G, Y, minus 1.6, and that's it. It looks fabulous, and that's it. I think it looks good at this point. Obviously, there's a lot more to add into it, uh, but the actual design modeling aspect of it is almost complete. Uh, certainly have to work on this area. I'm sorry, certainly have to work more on this edge area over here. But other than that, I think majority of the modeling is complete. We can look into the actual model once more. Yeah, the rest of the lines are mainly textures. I just wanted a little bit over there because I saw it. Again, I think this is a bit too much, but again, yeah, I still feel it's a bit too much. We could reduce it if we need. Like, actually, let's reduce it. Otherwise, it's going to be on my head. Let's choose that. No, face select. Let's choose those. Let's choose those, and let's reduce this up just a little bit. Let's get it to minus 0.5. Same over here. Let's bring it down 0.5. Okay, much better. And yeah, if we want, we can revert this back a little bit as well because of how we chose to keep it. Bring it back minus 0.3. Same here. 0.3, and that's it. It looks good. It's pretty good at where it's standing right now. Very close to what it actually resembles. Not exactly close. I mean, there are still certain parts of it that I have to add, like the ridges in between each sleeve, but we'll look into that later on if required. Right now, it's not that big of a deal. Here, it's a much more simpler architecture of division, but I have used the box cutter to give it a bit more of a complex shape. That's just my personal choice. You guys can do whatever you want. That's the best part of modeling. If you don't like something the way it looks, or if you want to make it a little more interesting, make it a little more complex, you can do that, because at the end of the day, you're just modeling for yourself. So yeah, doesn't matter, doesn't have to be super accurate to the level of what it is in the actual movie, especially not in something like a fan film that I'm making. But yeah, that's about it. That's the modeling part of it. If there are some other changes to the model, I'll definitely be showcasing that, like, tomorrow or day after tomorrow when I'm doing the actual texturing. And yeah, this is about it. The texturing aspect of it, we'll probably do it tomorrow or day after tomorrow whenever I'll get time to do it. But yeah, that's about it. And this was fun. Doing this was fun. I hadn't exactly modeled something in Blender in a while now. Been using Cinema 4D for most of it. But yeah, that's it. Let's save it. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. If there's anyone out there watching, uh, thank you guys. Uh, and yeah, I'll end the stream probably around now. Thank you so much, and bye. I'll see you guys later. Bye bye.